It's always gratifying when you represent someone who really needs your help and you can get that person a really good result. And that's what happened in David's case. David, which is not his real name, but it's what I'll use today, was injured extraordinarily badly in his motorcycle accident. He sustained traumatic brain injuries so severe that afterward he could not walk, he couldn't talk, he couldn't brush his teeth, couldn't move around. He was affected as profoundly by this collision as it is possible to imagine. And think of the way that affects not only him, but his family. I mean, David's life is not gone, but very nearly so. And that reverberates through his community. It obviously affected his girlfriend who was in the collision with him, and affected his parents who had to then refocus their entire lives on caring for their adult son who could no longer care for himself. David had a brother who was pursuing his career in New York and was going to move back to Georgia to help care for David until his parents said, no, stay there, live your own life, please. So the whole community feels the effects of something so profound. So we took this case for a family that desperately needed financial help because they couldn't afford the care that David was going to need. It was not an easy case. David was on a date on the night in question. He had his girlfriend on the back of his motorcycle, and they were at this traffic light in Cobb County, Georgia. And when they were waiting to turn, I think they were going straight actually, or maybe they were waiting to turn left. But anyway, when the light turned green to go, David's motorcycle stalled, like the engine cut out. And so he was trying to get that fixed when this minivan came up behind and hit the motorcycle. It threw David into the other lane. And then another vehicle ran over David and drove off, never to be found. So we sued the driver of the minivan, never could sue the other driver because never could find him. That was a challenging case because the driver of the minivan was approaching what appeared to be a green light. The headlights showed the motorcycle, but David and his girlfriend were wearing dark colors, so they were hard to see. We also had some concerns because Cobb County, Georgia is historically a conservative venue or a conservative sort of jurisdictional area in which to try a case, and we were worried that potential jurors there would have a bias against motorcycles, would think, okay, well, if you drive a motorcycle, obviously you're at risk of injury, you know what's coming to you. For a case like that, to figure out how the collision happened, you need an accident reconstructionist. That is someone who is a professional engineer and can tell you what vehicle was doing what, how the vehicles interacted, and how the collision came to be. The first 3 or 4 accident reconstruction experts that we talked to said, I'm sorry, Mr. Butler, we can't help you. We don't think that we can help you win this case. We'll have to decline. So it was really tough. We ended up finally finding some folks to work with, and we came up with a theory of the case that I hadn't seen before or since, and that was headlight glazing. If you looked at the Toyota minivan after the collision as it sat there in a tow lot, you could see from the pictures that the headlight covers, like the plastic part that covers the headlight, were kind of yellowed and glazed. Well, there's a little known statute or law on the books in Georgia, as there probably is in most states, that requires people to keep their vehicles in good repair. So we had a team of experts look at this. We had an expert photographer who could take pictures at the right times of day when the ambient light was correct, who could get the aperture right, the focus just right. We had an expert in human factors who describes the way drivers react to what they see and what they hear, react to stimuli, in other words. And we had our accident reconstructionists. We had those guys work together, and we had them go to the scene of this collision at the exact same time of night and take pictures there. And then we bought a different Toyota Sienna of the same vintage as this one to run tests with. And eventually we had them use the headlight covers. I believe they closed down one of the runways at DeKalb Peachtree Airport, PDK Airport here in Atlanta, so that they could do light beam testing and figure out how the cover, which had become glazed and yellowed on that headlight, affected visibility. And what we ultimately were able to conclude is that because the driver of this older minivan had allowed the headlight cover to glaze over and hadn't had it fixed or replaced, which she could have done fairly easily, her lights didn't go as far as they should have. And that, we said, is why the collision happened. We used that theory, had our experts testify about it, got the case ready for trial. We had a life care planner, had an economist. We were, I think, less than 30 days from trying this case when the insurance company finally caved, and they paid $45 million, which will be enough to take care of David and his family for the rest of their lives.